Welcome back to Heal Me with Chocolate, the podcast where the indulgence meets the integrity. I'm your host, Dr. Beata Lerman, the founder and creator of Sinless Treats Chocolate. And today, we're unwrapping the story behind your favorite functional chocolate. From the rainforest to your plate, we'll explore what ethical cacao really means and why it's not just better for the planet, but also better for your body. If you've ever enjoyed our approach to chocolate, tried our product, or curious about trying it, this episode will give you the origin story behind those healing flavors. So let's start with basics. Ethical chocolate goes beyond just the taste. It means something bigger. It means sourcing cacao from the farms that avoids using slave labor, child labor, and pays living wages. It also means that it's using cacao that's grown without harmful pesticides or deforestation, which takes the habitat out of different species of plants and animals. It can also mean choosing suppliers who invest in the local communities, soil regeneration, reforestation, and supports the environment. Agroforestry cacao farming is one of the examples. Instead of planting cacao in clear-cut fields that is barren and have no shade trees, farmers grow it in harmony with trees, animals, and native plants. This kind of biodiversity creates better cacao beans that are richer in antioxidants, flavonoids, and even stress buffering compounds. We have many stories of the farmers who grow in agroforestry conditions. In fact, we only source from the farmers who grow within what it looks like a rainforest, a jungle. The reason for that is the health of the soil. And what I mean by that is there is a fungal disease, the yeast, that kills cacao fruits all over the world. There are different conspiracy theories among the farmers. Some believe that the Western countries engineered those fungus to control the cacao trade. But mostly, what we see it on the monocropping farms. When I started coming to agroforestry farms and asking them if their plants were susceptible to that disease, and to be fair, the disease only attacks the cacao fruits. It spares the trees, it spares the flowers, but once the fruits get ripened, and that means they transition the color, they change their original non-ripe color to a completely different colors. And I always say cacao can start any color of the rainbows and they can end in any color of the rainbows. But once they fully transition the color, it's considered to be ripe and ready to be harvested. However, in many places, if you don't harvest right away, within 24 hours, that fungus get a hold of the inside of the cacao fruit, and you can't use that anymore. It actually turns bitter, it turns black inside, it turns very harmful to health, and also it affects the economy of the countries that grow the cacao. And so we see it a lot in the farms that essentially just puts the trees, there is no other plants around. But in agroforestry condition, what happens is those other plants create a microbiome in the soil. Similarly, how diverse foods and plants create a protective gut microbiome in the human body. And those microbiome in the soil actually fights those harmful fungus that attacks the cacao pod, and it makes them more resilient, more healthy. So having that biodiversity protects the indigenous farmers from having their crops to be ruined by different diseases. This might sound surprising, But soil is very important for multiple reasons. It's not just creates the protective environment for healthy plants. It also where the flavors begin. Healthy soil equals healthy trees, more nutrient-rich cacao, and therefore a better tasting cacao. In agroforestry environments, cacao trees absorb trace minerals and adaptogens from surrounding plants. It can enhance the natural profile of compounds like theobromine, the natural stimulant that improves focus, flavonoids, the anti-inflammatory and good for circulation molecules, and anandamide, the bliss-inducing neurotransmitter. You'll taste this in all of our cacao bars and bonbons made with cacao from the high-elevation regenerative co-ops in Ecuador. The earthy, almost floral notes come straight from those soils that are enriched by different organic matters that grows on it. And no two harvests are exactly the same, but because the farmers care so deeply about the soil health and recycling those nutrients back into the soil, every time there is a harvest and they get the fruit and they get the pulp and the seed from the fruit for the fermentation, the open husk gets put back under the trees. So all of the micronutrients can be recycled back to the soil. So it creates a natural compost and also feeds the trees for generations to come to have a very good taste profiles. The richness of flavor found in our chocolate selection is directly linked to the soil biodiversity and the traditional processing method, the fermentation, the drying, that preserves the cacao energetic integrity. Let's explore the indigenous roots of the cacao. To truly understand cacao, we need to go back, way back. Cacao has been cultivated for thousands of years by indigenous people in Mesoamerica. In the northern part of the equator, the Olmecs, Mayans, and Aztecs revered cacao as sacred. It was used in ceremonies, trade, and healing. It wasn't eaten as candy, it was a spiritual food. But it didn't originate in Mexico or Panama or Peru. It originated from Brazil, Amazonia rainforest, and that's through different trade, through different collaboration, the cacao came from the Amazon rainforest and was cultivated as food of gods throughout the Mesoamerican. In Ecuador and Peru, indigenous tribes like Quechua and Ashaninka communities continue to grow the Nacional Arriba and Criollo cacao using traditional chemical-free methods. These communities don't just plant cacao, they protect the forest that gives its life. Shade-grown cacao supports wildlife corridors, soil retention, and traditional plant medicine. We visit cacao farms on the annual basis, and we usually stay there for 4 to 6 weeks. So we very often work with farmers who tell us the story what cacao means to them. And so I want to tell the story of Linda, who is a woman farm owner, a descendant of the Aztec tribes, and she loves to talk how sacred the cacao tree is. First of all, she always refers to cacao trees as a female, as a woman, as something that continuously gives life. She always tells when she leads those groups or when she asks me to emphasize when I lead those groups in English that every part of cacao tree is medicinal, from the bark to the roots, to the old leaves, to the young leaves, to the seeds, to the pulp, to the husk. All of it can be used to treat and remedy different illnesses. So it's truly the food that is revered in the indigenous communities. and people live in harmony with those plants. She always say, cacao is our ancestor. We don't grow it for money. We grow it because it teaches us how to live. That philosophy echoes in every bite of the heirloom cacao-made Sinless treats chocolate. The product created with beans sourced directly from her village. In the chocolate world, in recent years, more and more mid and large-sized global companies start refusing the shipments of the cacao beans. Means that they receive hundreds of tons of specific cacao beans. They check it for a flavor profile, and that flavor profile no longer corresponds to the iconic taste their customers is expecting from their product. And they purchase those massive amounts of cacao beans, and then they refuse it based on taste just because the soils where those cacao beans were growing are so depleted, it can no longer provide the trace minerals and micronutrients to consistently deliver that taste that they expect. In agroforestry environments, cacao trees absorb the trace minerals and adaptogens from the surrounding plants. From the leaves that fall from, in our farms, for example, every time we open the cacao pods and take out the pulp and the seeds, those cacao pods are returned to under the trees in order to resupply the trees back with those nutrients and trace minerals that is making up the remainder of the fruit. This can enhance the natural profiles of compounds like theobromine, a natural stimulant that improves focus. The flavonoids, the anti-inflammatory compound that goods for circulation. The anandamide, we've talked about this before, the bliss-inducing neurotransmitter. Also, agroforestry and composting and recirculation of cacao parts, the tree parts that have not been used, are returning the magnesium, the selenium, the manganese, and other trace minerals that will ensure that the consistency of taste is there for generations to come. And you'll taste it in all our cacao bars and bonbons made with cacao from high-elevation regenerative co-op farms in Ecuador. What I mean by co-ops, I mean it's a number of farmers who have pieces of land who grow in the same conditions. So it can be 84 different farmers connecting together, everybody growing in the same way, or 260 farmers in a different region of Ecuador, and they all adhere to very high practical and ethical standards. The earthy, almost floral notes of chocolate come straight from that enriched soil. And no two harvests taste exactly the same. But if we keep the soil health consistent, if we continue to support the growth of the other native plants, it will stay consistent over time. The richness of flavor found in chocolate selection is directly linked to soil biodiversity and traditional fermenting and drying methods that preserves cacao energetic integrity. So, let's talk about the indigenous roots of cacao, my favorite topic. To really understand cacao, we need to go back, way back. Cacao has been cultivated for thousands of years by indigenous people in Mesoamerica. But it really originated from one place in Brazil, in Amazon rainforest, from where it was taken to different Mesoamerican countries with tribes like Olmec, Mayans, and Aztecs, who took it to Ecuador and north of it, and revered cacao as sacred. In those cultures, it was used in ceremonies, trade, and healing. It wasn't eaten as candy. It was a spiritual food. Also, cacao beans, as I said, was used for trade, so it was used as currency. In those times, money was literally growing on trees. So that is a very fun piece of trivia. And anything from services to products on the markets could have been bought for a specific amount of cacao beans. And I actually heard that story from the descendants of those tribes. In Ecuador and Peru, the indigenous Quechua and Ashaninka communities continue to grow Nacional Arriba and Criollo cacao using traditional chemical-free agroforestry methods. These communities don't just plant cacao, they protect the forest that gives it life. Shade-grown cacao supports the wildlife corridor, soil retention, and traditional plant medicines. And I've said it before, even these days, the descendants of those tribes really treat the entire cacao tree as medicinal plant. Every part of the tree can be used for something. And they still respecting that and using that to this day. In one of our boots on the ground visits, I stayed on the farm of Pedro and his family. He, his son, and his wife are the sole owners of that 6-hectare farm. And he's an elder from Quechua community in the Puerto Quito region. He told us cacao is our ancestor. We don't grow it for money. We grow it because it teaches us how to live. That philosophy echoes in every bite of our heirloom ancestral DNA cacao, which we release and create with the beans that source directly from his farm and his village. Let's address something really serious now. Not all chocolate is clean. And we're talking about the heavy metals and clean chocolate. And I'm not talking about the fun heavy metal that is music. I'm talking about the toxic one that can affect our brain and health. In recent reports from Consumer Report and others have shown that many popular brands of dark chocolate contain lead and cadmium, two heavy metals that can be toxic over time, especially for children and pregnant women. At Sinless Treats, we test every batch of chocolate for heavy metals and contaminants, and our suppliers provide the third-party certifications as well. Our products are designed with this in mind: safe, satisfying, and screened for purity. And we don't have any significant amounts or trace amounts of cadmium and lead in our chocolate. Why is that? One of the main reasons is because we don't use herbicides or pesticides on the cacao when it's grown, and our farmers don't use it either. Those agrochemicals is one of the main source of lead. But what about cadmium? Cadmium is found in soils, especially in the regions where coffee and cacao grow. And it is a hallmark metal of highly volcanic soils. So why some regions they accumulate in cacao in high amounts and the other regions they don't? Well, that has to do with those agroforestry practices. Because if cacao is the only plant around, then they are gonna absorb cadmium in large amounts because it's widely available. If there is several hundreds of other plants that are growing on the same square kilometer or square mile of that farm, availability would be significantly reduced because there will be other plants who are actually thriving on cadmium that, for example, are not edible, such as large shade trees. And they're going to sequester a lot of that heavy metal that's harmful for our health away from the cacao trees, leaving a lot less behind to be accumulated in the cacao beans. If you are buying dark chocolate anywhere, Look for the companies that publish heavy metal test results or source from region with naturally low soil contamination. We have a customer who found us quite early when we opened. His name is Doug, and he is a fund manager in Houston. Doug found us specifically because of that report, because his favorite chocolate was found to have alarming amount of cadmium and lead. And when he reached out, he asked us, can you provide the proof that you don't have heavy metals? Because he is very, very health conscious. And we did. And since then, he has been one of our most valued customer, because when he buys chocolate, and he does that about 4 times a year, he buys like 160 bars. And he told me that I come home from my busy day at work, very stressful day. He manages a lot of money. And your chocolate is my reward for the day. And sometimes I eat a bar and sometimes I eat 2. But with the proofs and quality that he knows to expect from us, and that we can prove by documentation, he feels pretty safe of eating that chocolate. He also did tell me that eating Sinless Treats chocolate is his highlight of the day, which kind of made my day too. So let's talk about what sustainable really means and all of that. Sustainable isn't just a buzzword. It means that cacao farmers can keep growing without exhausting the land. It also means that chocolate is packaged responsibly. We use the compostable boxes, and our chocolate bars have a seaweed-made plastic which biodegrades in 10 days. And it also means that production process minimizes waste and energy. Our dark chocolate bars are a great example. They made in small batches at a time in a solar-powered kitchen and wrapped in fully recyclable boxes. I have another story from one of our suppliers. His name is Francisco. He also is from Ecuador, Guyana region. And he told us the story that he inherited this farm from his father, as his father inherited it from his grandfather. And they always followed the agroforestry practices. He was proud to say that they see the most unique species of plants and animals on their farm. And he showed us the soil quality. The soil also have a lot of fungus and mycelia in it, which makes it very rich and breaks down complex molecules to be more bioavailable for people. And it makes stronger, healthier, and more resilient cacao beans. And the reason we look for farmers like that and we source from farmers like that is to reward that work, that dedication, the adherence to tradition, their unparalleled commitment to nature and to preserving habitats for the animals, which we really like to photograph as well. And it helps that entire community. So why does it matter for your health? Just beyond the ethics and environment, responsible chocolate is better for you. Fewer toxins equals less burden on your liver and kidneys. More antioxidants gives you better recovery, improves the skin condition, and stimulates the immunity. Cleaner cacao is equal to more consistent benefits from ingredients like flavonoids, theobromine, and polyphenols. When your chocolate isn't diluted by fillers, oils, sugar, and contaminants, your body can actually use the compounds for what they were designed to. Every chocolate bar is a choice. Choosing a bar from our dark milk or white chocolate collection means saying yes to better soil, better health, better outcome for everybody, better rainforest in the supply chain from farmers to flavor to function. Because when chocolate heals the planet and your body at the same time, that's when it became sacred. Thanks for joining us on this journey from soil to soul. In the next episode, we'll bring on the regenerative cacao farmer to talk about what a day in the life of sustainable growing actually looks like. Until then, stay thoughtful and stay nourished, one bite at a time. If you want to know more about Sinless Treats chocolate, our story, our mission, and see our products, visit us at sinlesstreetschocolate.com and comment down below what would you like to try. Until next time, thank you and stay healthy.